I bet you didn't expect that music. But y'all know what day it is. It's Halloween, and I want to welcome everyone back to Exposed Scandalous Files of the Elite. I am your host, Jim Chapman. And before we go any further, I do want to say happy Halloween to every single one of you out there listening. I hope you all have a ton of fun tonight, but be safe, be responsible, and have a great time. I am looking forward to this episode today, and we're going to have a little bit of fun with it. We've talked about so many serious things on the show. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a little different, but we're going to stick with the theme of Exposed. We're going to talk about some of the most popular stories from cursed movie sets. We're going to talk about some urban legends from Hollywood. And y'all know I love my fun facts. So we're going to wrap up the show today, and I'm going to give you some fun facts specifically related to Halloween that you may not know. Before we get into today's episode, I dropped a bonus episode last week. It was actually Thursday night. I finished that bonus episode early, and I said, why make my Patreon supporters wait when I can drop it right now? So I went ahead and dropped it, but I dropped it live, and I'm going to tell you what that means. And it was actually on Abercrombie and Fitch in the indictment that Steve Jeffries just got handed down from the government. I dropped it live, which meant it was interactive. I was also on Patreon at that time, and as we were all listening to it, we could comment back and forth and do a bunch of fun things. It was really awesome. I had a great time just commenting as we listened, and people would make comments. I would respond to them. Thank you to the supporters that joined, and I'm looking forward to doing that more in the future. So if you have a chance, come join us on the Patreon. I do a ton of extra stuff on that page, and I think you're really going to feel like you're getting your money's worth for sure. So let's get to it, and I'm going to start off with some pretty wild stories from haunted movie sets. And I'm going to take you to the movie set of Poltergeist. Y'all remember Poltergeist? I'm sure a lot of you do. One of the most popular horror films of all time. And it has Carol Ann in it. And I remember watching that, and I might have been about 12 or so when that movie came out. And I was totally freaked out by the TV. Back in the old days, y'all, when I was young, after the final show on TV would end, it would be, we called it snow. Your TV would just go black and white, and it would be like snow on the TV screen. And that freaked me out from then on out. So if you ain't seen Poltergeist, if you're too young and you hadn't seen that yet, go check it out and you'll know what I mean. Anyway, we'll get into it. Now, the set of Poltergeist is said to have been haunted and to have cursed many of its cast and crew. Much like the film, the actors and crew members experienced a number of strange events on the set, which did not stop once filming ended. While filming the first movie, Poltergeist 1, one of the young stars almost choked to death while filming a scene in which his character is choked by a possessed clown doll. And I remember that scene. In a freak accident, the mechanical clown gripped the boy's neck so tight he started to yell that he couldn't breathe, and his face actually turned blue. Steven Spielberg, the famous director, had to jump in and pry the clown's hands off the neck of the boy to save his life. And they had a lot of bad luck that followed off the set as well. 22-year-old Dominique Dunn, who played the oldest daughter in the film, she was actually murdered by her ex-boyfriend when she shot down his attempts to win her back. 6 years after the first Poltergeist movie, and 1 year before the release of the third installment of that movie, actress Heather O'Rourke died at the age of 12 after being misdiagnosed with Crohn's disease in 1987. A year after being misdiagnosed, she became sick again. And after being diagnosed with the flu, she collapsed due to cardiac arrest. While in surgery later that day, she died and was believed to have suffered from a congenital intestinal abnormality. And who was Heather O'Rourke? Well, she was the star of Poltergeist. She was the one who played Carol Ann. Another cast member nearly died in a plane crash in 1992, which resulted in the death of 27 of the 51 people on board. And then after 3 more deaths of cast members over the years, people started talking about Poltergeist was cursed, right? Julian Beck from the second film, she died from stomach cancer in 1985 before the movie was even released. Will Sampson, who played a shaman, he died in 1987 while in surgery, and the actor who played Pugsley in the original movie was murdered in 2009. That's a lot of incidents, right, on one movie set. And there's an iconic scene in the first movie in which the characters have to swim through a pool of mud and skeletons. Jo Beth Williams, who played the mother in that film, claimed the scene was filmed using real skeletons, not props. So there you have it with Poltergeist. And we'll get into another, this is probably the most famous horror flick of all time, and that's The Exorcist. It is definitely referred to as one of the scariest movies ever made. And the process of making that movie was just as scary. So it all started when William Peter Blatty was writing the book that the movie was based off of, and his wife started to see a hairbrush floating in the air, and his phone in his house starts levitating. There were 2 strange disasters that actually took place on the set. In one case, the set of the McNeil family home, nobody can explain it. It spontaneously catches fire and burns down. And it actually set the production of the film back 6 weeks. The only part of the set unharmed was Reagan's bedroom, which in the movie, that's where the demon spent most of its time. At another point, the cast and crew arrived on the set one morning to find everything covered in snow. According to reports, the explanation was many air conditioners were left running combined with natural humidity on the set, and that allowed for snow to form. However, many still think that's really strange because it actually snowed indoors. The set was also plagued by a lot of injuries. In one instance, star Linda Blair fractured her back while filming a scene in which Reagan is thrashing around on a moving bed. Actress Ellen Bernstein also suffered a back injury while filming a scene during which her character is thrown across the room by Blair's character. While filming the stunt, something went wrong with Bernstein's harness, which messed with the timing of the stunt, and that caused her to land on her back, permanently injuring her spine. And how about The Conjuring, another classic horror film? And that movie's reportedly based on the true story of the Perron family and what they experienced when they moved into a haunted farmhouse. Now, the stories of what occurred on the set of the film are pretty unsettling. The Conjuring and its sequel, The Conjuring 2, both had some pretty horrifying instances happen. One of the film's stars, Vera Farmiga, who played the character Lorraine Warren, had a number of strange experiences, including waking up throughout the duration of the filming between the hours of 3 and 4 in the morning. And that was commonly referred to as the witching hour, when spirits are said to be most active. She also claimed to have found claw marks on her thigh one night when she woke up. Prior to accepting the role, she found claw marks on her laptop screen shortly after researching the woman she would be playing, she also claims, and younger actress Joey King would also wake up with mysterious bruises on her body, even though she had no stunts in the film. And she claims they were incredibly painful and it felt like a bruise. And she also mentioned that they were in the shapes of claw marks. Now, look, one of the not so necessarily scary movies, actually, it was a really good movie, was Ghost. I'm sure most of us have seen that movie. Now, while Ghost isn't the first film that comes to mind when most people think of scary movies, the set has a strange connection to another film that I already mentioned, and I'm going to tell you about that. And it made for some pretty scary moments for the actors while making the movie. So the movie centers around a man played by Patrick Swayze. He comes back into the life of his girlfriend after he's murdered. And it's believed that the ghost of Heather O'Rourke from Poltergeist haunted that set because it was the same set on which the popular sitcom Happy Days was filmed. And O'Rourke appeared on that show as a recurring character. The cast and crew of Ghost reported hearing footsteps on the rafters and the sound of children's laughter. It was commonly known that O'Rourke enjoyed playing in the rafters of that set, and further strengthening the theory was the laugh sounded like her laugh. Interesting. How about The Omen? There were many moments while The Omen was filming that suggest the set was haunted. Even before the movie was made, an executive by the name of Bob Munger warned producers that making the movie was a bad idea. He's quoted as saying, "If the devil's greatest single weapon is to be invisible and you're going to do something which is going to take away his invisibility to millions of people, he's not going to want it to happen." So the day after filming a scene at a zoo, the man who trained the baboons was mauled to death by a tiger. On a separate occasion, Rottweilers on the set attacked multiple people. The film's star, Gregory Peck, evaded death twice during the filming of the movie, both times involving a plane. On one occasion, the plane Peck was flying in was struck by lightning, which could have ended badly, but resulted in no issues. Prior to this incident, Peck was supposed to be traveling on a plane that ended up crashing, but he decided to cancel his flight that day. There was also an instance in 2006 during the remake of the movie in which 13,500 feet of film was destroyed, a portion of which was contained to the scene where the Damien character's 666 birthmark is revealed. And that is a little bit from some of the haunted movie sets in Hollywood. And we're going to go from that to some haunted actual places in Hollywood and some urban legends you may not be familiar with. And we're going to start off with the Cecil Hotel, which is a hotel in Los Angeles. I wouldn't recommend you stay there, though. It's now called the Stay On Main Motel, but originally it was named the Cecil Hotel. The establishment has been home to 2 serial killers. Richard Ramirez, better known as the Night Stalker, was a self-described Satanist and was convicted of ending the lives of 13 people in 1989. While he went on his spree, he lived at the Cecil. The hotel was also home to another of America's notorious, Jack Unterweger, who terminated 3 women while staying at the hotel. But the event that caused the Cecil to rename itself happened much more recently with the passing of Elsa Lam. One day in 2013, guests started complaining about the water pressure. Upon investigation, they actually found a body inside a water tank on the roof. Security footage was eventually released showing Lam the night she disappeared. And it's one of the creepiest videos. Y'all, I have seen this video. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put that on the Patreon. One of the creepiest videos you will ever see. For some reason, the elevator won't close for her, and she seems to be talking to someone, but no one is in that video. She's literally talking to nobody. The circumstances surrounding her passing have never been confirmed. Pretty crazy story. I've dug into that one. Let's talk about James Dean. I'm sure most of you have heard of James Dean. He was one of Hollywood's most enduring people, and one of the most enduring urban legends centers around his supposedly cursed car. After the young actor unexpectedly passed in a collision, the wrecked vehicle was bought by a man named George Barris. After it was towed to a repair shop, the car somehow slipped from the trailer it was on and crushed a mechanic's leg. Later, Barris sold the engine to two fellows by the name of Troy McHenry and William Isrod. While they were racing each other using parts of the car, McHenry hit a tree and died. Isrod was hurt when his car locked up and rolled over. Barris later sold the two remaining tires, but when the new owner put them on his car, both of them simultaneously blew out and caused the car to run off the road. After that, people attempted to put the car on display, but the first exhibit burned, with the car itself being completely undamaged, just the set around it. And the second one involved a freak circumstance that resulted in someone's hip breaking. And y'all, it didn't even stop there. A truck transporting the car lost control, causing the driver to fall out and get crushed by the car after it fell off the back of the transport truck. Two more transport trucks tried to take the car, but the car fell off both of them. And get this, James Dean's car mysteriously disappeared after that, and it hasn't been seen since. Freaky. How about Paul Bern's house? Let's talk about him. Sharon Tate would later become famous for being a victim of the Manson family. But in 1966, she had an encounter with a ghost that many believe was a premonition for her own fate. She was staying at a house that once belonged to Paul Bern, who was a writer-director from the 1920s who was found with a gunshot wound to his head. Now, the circumstances around his passing can only be described as mysterious, which, unsurprisingly, may have led to some ghostly activities. Tate reported seeing not only the ghost of Paul Bern walking around at night, but also a figure at the bottom of the staircase with his throat cut. Now, a lot of hospitals freak me out. These abandoned hospitals, for me, I don't like them. They got one in New Orleans. It's the old Charity Hospital in New Orleans, and you could not pay me $1 million to go up in there. Don't like it. Too many freaky things happen in hospitals. But I'm going to tell you about Linda Vista Hospital, and that's in Los Angeles. Now, it was built in 1904 and it closed in 1991. The hospital has many spooky tales surrounding it. There are reports of patients disappearing from the hospital and being used for experiments by the hospital staff. When they passed, doctors disposed of their bodies in the crematorium. There's another legend that says the abandoned hospital is haunted by an unfortunate doctor who was ended by gang members when he couldn't save one of the crew's life. And I bet y'all didn't know about the Beverly Hills Bermuda Triangle. Now, there are some spots on this earth that are just odd. And a section of land in Beverly Hills has become so notorious for accidents that many call it the Beverly Hills Bermuda Triangle. On this tiny patch of land, Howard Hughes crashed his plane. Bugsy Siegel's life was taken. Rock duo Jan Berry of the Jan and Dean Band was also almost ended in a bizarre accident with a car, and a Hollywood publicist named Ronnie Chasen was shot in her car. Many other crazy haunted tales have turned this intersection into one that should be avoided. So there you have it. The Colorado Street Bridge in Los Angeles, also referred to as the Suicide Bridge. This stretch of land has been a spot for jumpers to commit suicide starting back in 1919. Since then, hundreds of people have chosen to end their life at the bottom of the Colorado Street Bridge. Of course, It's not surprising to hear that that bridge is actually haunted. There are also reports that a worker possibly fell into the concrete during construction, and he too haunts that bridge along with all the others. Let's talk about the Hollywood sign ghost. In Peg Estwhistle, she never found the success she was looking for. She was struggling as an actress and moved to Los Angeles in the 1930s looking for her big break. Although she was extremely talented, she got lost in the sea of similar faces and it sent her into a deep depression. So in 1932, she was so distraught, she climbed atop the H in the Hollywood sign and jumped 45 feet to her death. But she had a note. And that note read, "I am afraid, I am a coward, I am sorry for everything. If I had done this a long time ago, I would have saved a lot of pain." Ever since then, of course, people report to have seen her ghost around the Hollywood sign. All right, and here's my favorite part of today's episode. And y'all know I love my fun facts. Let me give you some fun facts that are going to blow your mind, all related to Halloween. And look, Friday the 13th, very popular Halloween type series. Of course, Jason Voorhees is the serial killer from that series. But did you know there's a statue of Jason Voorhees at the bottom of a Minnesota lake? A diver by the name of Doug Klein actually constructed that statue, mask and all, made of plywood, bubble wrap, and foam, and he placed it 120 feet down in a water-filled mine pit. Now, this is near Crosby, Minnesota, and it's only able to be seen by the most advanced divers. It's a big travel spot for those divers to go check out that statue. In 2022, a city in Horry County called Conway announced that for the month of October, they will be renamed the City of Halloween. Now, they did this in an effort to boost tourism and economic development during the fall season. And it actually worked. People flock to the City of Halloween, apparently in South Carolina, ever since they changed that name just for that 1 month. 1 in 5 adults actually pretends not to be home during Halloween. So not everybody gives out candy, right? But a lot of people are actually home. They just don't turn on that porch light. And they actually did a poll recently, and come to find out it's 1 in 5 adults. And people knock on that door and they just don't answer. Trick or treat was not necessarily the original phrase children would shout out to receive candy. Instead, kids would yell "Bell Snickle." This, according to the Library of Congress. Historians argue the modern call originated from bell snickling, a German-American Christmas tradition where kids dressed in costumes went out to their neighbors to see if they could guess the identity of those dressed up. Now, in some versions, the adults couldn't accurately guess, so the children were rewarded with treats and goodies. A full moon on Halloween is not as common as you would think. A full moon only occurs every 19 years on Halloween. So if you're lucky enough to celebrate Halloween with a full moon, enjoy it, because it'll be nearly 20 years before that occurs again. Trick-or-treating has actually existed since medieval times. Taking candy from strangers one night a year isn't new or unique. It once was known as guising, and it occurred in Scotland and Ireland. Young people would dress up in costumes, go door to door looking for food or money in exchange for performing songs, poems, or other tricks. In this one, I really liked. Some Halloween rituals used to be geared towards finding a husband. During the 18th century, single ladies devised Halloween traditions that were supposed to help them meet their romantic match. Women used to throw apple peels over their shoulder, hoping they would see their future husband's initials in the pattern they made when they landed. They even used to stand in a dark room, hold a candle in front of a mirror to look for their future husband's face to appear in the glass. And look, that's completely changed because we used to call that Bloody Mary when I was a kid, and you would light a candle and stand in front of a mirror and freak yourself out because supposedly the spirit of Bloody Mary would appear. Y'all remember that, or is that just me? During World War II, sugar rationing actually paused trick-or-treating. Because of the shortage of sugar, trick-or-treating wasn't as big a thing during World War II. But after rationing ended, it was all systems go and everybody started celebrating Halloween again. But during World War II, no sugar. Halloween commercially is the second largest holiday in the country. Only Christmas rakes in more money. Consumers spent a record $12.2 billion in 2023, which exceeded the $10.6 billion spent in 2022 on Halloween decorations, candy, etc. So with all that money they're spending, what do you think the average person spends? Well, they did a poll on that. The average person spends on candy, decorations, and costumes $108 per person. And if you're curious to know which state produces the most pumpkins, it would be Illinois. Actually, it produces twice as many pumpkins as any other state, over 630 pounds of pumpkins per year. And one of the favorite holiday treats for a lot of people is candy corn. I know I love it, but it was originally called chicken feed. The guy that actually came up with candy corn originally for 1 year in the 1880s called it chicken feed, and no one bought it. So he changed the name to candy corn, and the rest is history, obviously. The fastest pumpkin carver in the world is a guy by the name of Stephen Clark. He can carve an entire pumpkin from start to finish in 16.4 seconds. And what do you think the most popular Halloween candy is? Well, if you said Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, you would be right, bar none, and my favorite as well. Number 2 on the list is M&M's, and number 3 is hot tamales. And when my kids were younger, that's what I did. I stole all the Reese's Peanut Butter Cups out of their bags. I know I'm horrible. The magician Harry Houdini actually died on Halloween in 1926. And there's a lot of conspiracies behind his death. Some people say he was poisoned. Others say a student was punching him in the stomach as part of a trick. But the official cause of death for Harry Houdini is health issues. And as far as parades go, New York City, and not really a surprise to me, they hold the largest parade in the country. Hundreds of thousands of people go to the New York City Halloween parade. All right, so I'm going to give y'all a list of the top 10 scary movies of all time. They just did a big poll on that. Number 10, Night of the Living Dead, 1968. Number 9, Evil Dead 2 of 1987. Number 8, The Silence of the Lambs, 1991. I don't know if I would call that a horror movie. Number 7, Jaws, 1975. Number 6, Alien, 1979. Number 5, The Bride of Frankenstein from way back in 1935. Number 4, Halloween, 1978. I probably would have had that number 1. Number 3, Psycho, 1960. Number 2, The Exorcist, 1973. And what do you think number 1 was? And this one surprised me, but it was pretty scary. Number 1, The Shining, 1980, according to that poll. So the last thing I'm going to tell you about today is a conspiracy theory regarding Avril Lavigne. There's a lot of people out there that say she is in fact dead. Now, it was back in 2005 that this theory first surfaced, and it alleged that Lavigne had taken her own life after the trauma of her grandfather's death, and that she had been replaced by a double named Melissa Vandella. According to the theory, Vandella was originally hired to protect Lavigne from intrusive media, and that following Lavigne's apparent death, the record company used Vandella as Lavigne's substitute. So to support this theory, conspiracists point to changes in the artist's appearance and voice. These include reconfiguration of beauty spots and handwriting. And one version of the theory claims that because Lavigne's replacement Vandella felt bad about lying, she left behind subliminal clues in her song's lyrics. One such song is Nobody's Home. Conspiracy advocates believe the words confirm Lavigne died at her parents' empty house. Additionally, they cite a promotional photo shoot where the singer had the name Melissa written on her hand. So there you have it. I think Avril is still alive. Happy Halloween. I want to thank all of y'all for listening, subscribing, and I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great Halloween night. If you're spending it with family, if you're going out and partying, be safe, be smart, be careful. And until next time, for Exposed Scandalous Files of the Elite, I'm your host, Jim Chapman. Much love.